I want to speak about our good FBA sister, AssataShakur, who the United States government, along with Donald Trump, is trying to bring back to the United States to serve out the remainder of her years behind bars for the alleged killing of a police officer. So y'all let Carolyn Bryant's, nasty behind, get to live out, the rest of her life in the free and clear after it was proven that she lied on our young brother Emmett Till, and that lie, resulted in our young brother getting killed. And if this ain't white supremacy, a case of white supremacy, I don't know what is, because it's also proof that in a white supremacist, ran society, that they don't value black life, and damn that whole narrative. See, the thing about Assata Shakur is, she's a staple in black society, a staple of resilience, independence, and she's revered in black society. So I think y'all stand out to make out better if y'all just leave our FBA sister Assata Shakur alone, because that's a can of worms y'all really don't want to open up, because that, may cause foundational black Americans all over to turn all the way up. And I don't think y'all really want that. So I got the audio and the video of, them trying to, bring Assata Shakur back to the United States of America, to face, so-called justice, as they put it. And we're going to walk through and talk about it like we normally do, family. Fair use.
They fled U.S. justice to escape to Cuba. For decades, dozens of American fugitives, murderers, hijackers, and others have been living scot-free. Well, today marks the anniversary of one murder, that of a New Jersey state trooper whose convicted killer has been living in Cuba. Our senior correspondent, Eric Schad, reports on what's being done about that. Eric?
Well, hello, John. She killed a state trooper on this day 52 years ago. And now there are new calls for President Trump to bring her.
And I don't believe nothing that comes out the authorities' mouth regarding our sister Assata Shakur, because they ain't nothing but race soldiers at the end of the day. But let's continue.
Other criminals who have evaded U.S. justice back from Cuba. Colonel Pat Callahan is the superintendent of the New Jersey State Police. He commands a force of 5,000. But when he arrives at the office every morning, he looks at the photograph of one trooper on the mantel behind him. It is the portrait of Trooper Werner Forster.
He's actually with my family member, too, so I view him as a family member.
Trooper Forster was 34 years old when he was shot to death in the line of duty during a traffic stop on the New Jersey Turnpike in 1973. Black Liberation Army radical Joanne Chesimard was convicted of killing him, but then escaped from prison and fled to Cuba, where she is protected by the Havana regime to this day.
I understand it's a sovereign nation, and
I salute the Cuba, though, for looking out for, our good FBA sister, Assata Shakur, and protecting her for all these years. But let's continue.
That there's no extradition policy, but here's somebody who's murdered a Jersey trooper who lives free. And that just really is painful for law enforcement, not only in New Jersey, but across the country.
Return the fugitives from American justice, including the return of the cop killer, Joanne Chesimard.
See, Donald Trump wants to get, Assata Shakur, back over here, but yet he's parading around with, Daniel Penny like he's some sort of hero, when he ain't no damn hero. He ain't nothing more than your regular average run-of-the-mill white supremacist. See, they was calling, Assata Shakur a fugitive, a terrorist, but what about all of the, terrorists over here in America, that are getting coddled and pampered, under the veil of the system of racism, white supremacy, like George Zimmerman, Daniel Penny's cowardice behind, y'all looking out for and coddling and pampering them under the veil of white supremacy. And I don't respect that, nor do I rock with it. But let's continue.
President Trump has called for Cuba to cough her up. Secretary of State Marco Rubio tells Fox News, quote, "The Cuban regime continues to provide safe haven for terrorists and criminals, including fugitives from the United States. The brutal killing of New Jersey State Trooper Werner Forster will never be forgotten, and we will never stop fighting for justice." There are an estimated 70 American fugitives living in Cuba. In 1975, banker Frank Connor was killed in a New York City terrorist bombing. The suspected FALN bomb maker, Willie Morales, is also in Cuba.
We have these convicted terrorists 90 miles from home. We have the economic leverage on Cuba to bring them back, cut the deal, bring these guys back, and then we'll talk about how we're going to assist Cuba in the future.
It makes you mad. It makes you mad that Cuba harbors these terrorists and these fugitives.
A Senate bill.
What about all the American terrorists and fugitives that are, coddled and pampered under the veil of the system of racism, white supremacy, like George Zimmerman and Daniel Penny? So y'all can miss me with that. But let's continue.
Bill named for Connor and Forster calls for the fugitives' extradition. It is sponsored by Florida Senator Rick Scott.
We got to understand who the regime in Cuba is. We've got to hold them accountable. We have to make sure there's no money that goes there. It's disgusting that some killer like this would be just roaming the streets in Cuba.
Colonel Callahan says he and his fellow troopers will not rest until Chesimard is behind bars. You want her back?
I'd want her back yesterday, and I have Trooper Forrester's handcuffs ready.
Miss me with that. All of the, white terrorists running around here in America like George Zimmerman, Daniel Penny, and the system of racism, white supremacy ain't doing nothing but looking out for coddling and pampering these damn degenerates. That's why I'll never respect Trump, truth be told, because he got out here and, lifted up and propped up Daniel Penny like he was some damn sort of hero and icon, and he ain't none of the above. He ain't nothing more than your average run-of-the-mill white supremacist. Daniel Penny is a coward. But let's continue.
To go on her when she lands on that tarmac, wherever she is.
Those handcuffs are ready. Well, the Trump administration has been ramping up sanctions against Cuba. That means there is now new hope. The White House will finally be able to bring...
Yeah, miss me with that. But in closing, I think, they make out better if they just leave our good FBA sister AssataShakur alone, because AssataShakur is a staple of, independence and black resistance. And she's, revered in black society. So I think they'll stand to make out, better just leaving our good FBA sister AssataShakur alone and her getting out, able to live the rest of her life, her heyday out in the free and clear, the same way they did, with Carolyn Bryant, letting her white supremacists, behind get to live out her life, So if the same, if that applies to Carolyn Bryant, the same got to be, applied to AssataShakur. So, I don't think this is a can of worms that the United States government wants to open up, then bring it back AssataShakur, because this will cause foundational black Americans all over to turn all the way up. And I don't think they really want that. Just my thoughts on the matter. But leave our good FBA sister AssataShakur alone. Peace.